Episode 6, Breaking the Rules. Today we'll take a hard look at some of the rules that we create for ourselves around porn and consider whether those rules are really serving us or not. Hello there. I'm Stephen McConnell. I'm a life coach. I'm a Christian. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But no matter who you are, I hope this podcast helps you in your struggle with quitting porn, helps you to better manage your sexual desire, and helps you believe again in a future that will be bright for you. When I was little, my mom taught me, don't put plastic bags over your head. You won't be able to breathe. I thought that sounded like good advice. So one day, my brother was playing with a plastic bag on top of his head. And I said, don't put the plastic bag over your head. You won't be able to breathe. Of course, then my brother had to show me that he could do just that. So he put that bag over his head and kept breathing. Surprised, I decided he must still be able to breathe because the bag wasn't sealed shut around his head. So I needed to show him that he couldn't keep breathing if I squeezed it tight. Then about 2 seconds later, my mom walked in and was quite unhappy with the whole scene. I learned a hard lesson that day. I broke a rule to try to prove a point, and in doing so, I missed the whole point of the rule. Some rules are there for our safety, and it's really important that we follow them in all situations. For example, the vast majority of people agree that child pornography is never okay, so we made it illegal. Other rules are more like guidelines, to paraphrase Captain Barbossa in a well-known Disney movie. And if we're feeling confident, we may decide to depart from those guidelines. Speaking of decisions for just a minute, our brain doesn't like making decisions. It takes work to make a decision. It often requires commitment to a path and its consequences sometimes long into the future. So we often dread decisions. We may even avoid certain decisions way too long until we start having consequences from not deciding. Like we finally decide to cancel our gym membership even though we haven't really used the facilities in over 6 months. Because of this element of human nature where we avoid decisions to our own detriment, we often make rules to simplify our choices. Like the rule of washing our hands before leaving the bathroom. Most adults don't think twice about washing their hands because we've already decided that's just what we do. Personally, it would create a lot of mental agony for me to come up with some reason why I should not wash my hands when leaving the bathroom. So I don't sit there agonizing and debating over it. Should I wash them? Should I not? I just do it and get it over with. So the rule of hand washing saves me mental effort, and the cleanliness of my hands benefits me and the rest of society in the process. Like hand washing, we also make rules about sex. Some rules we learn from our friends and family, some rules we heard at school, and other rules about sex are even taught in our churches, in places of worship, or in scripture, like the Bible. Some of these rules we may deeply believe in, and others we just follow out of habit or obligation. For example, a widespread rule in religions across the world is that if you're married, it's wrong to have sex with someone else that you aren't married to. That's called cheating or adultery. Many religions also view fornication or sex between any unmarried individuals as a sin. These rules have literally been around for thousands of years. But pornography on the internet did not exist before the 1990s or barely 30 years ago. Depending on how old you are, maybe your parents had rules about surfing the internet, or maybe they didn't. Maybe your pastor or religious leader had rules about internet pornography, or maybe they didn't. Chances are, whatever the rules were, you felt like you wanted to have a look at it yourself to see what it was all about, or you probably wouldn't be listening to this podcast right now. So what that means for you and me is that while rules can be helpful, rules that we learn from others are not enough. They aren't enough to keep us from making mistakes, from going down a path that we later regret, or to prevent us from needing help from others. For my Christian listeners, this means that we will always need Jesus Christ. And what I'm teaching in this podcast is not a replacement for Jesus or religion in general. What I'm teaching are tools to help you better manage your mind, specifically in regards to porn use and sexual behavior. And so what I'm going to tell you next about rules, I think will help you a lot. Don't use rules against yourself. Use rules for yourself. Don't beat yourself up for breaking a rule. That doesn't help you or anybody. Rather, use rules as a way to simplify your life and your decision making. For example, let's say one of your rules is that you shouldn't look at porn. Not now, not ever. On the surface, we may say, okay, never look at porn. This rule seems straightforward. This rule should simplify my life. In fact, the only problem with this rule is that you break it regularly. And every time you break it, you have to find someone or something to blame. Usually it's yourself. You stew over it. You get mad about it. You may even get angry at God sometimes. But none of that fixes the problem. So what we discover is that this rule to never look at porn isn't serving you nearly as well as you think it's supposed to. You're using it more against yourself than for yourself. So how do we fix that? There are two options here. Number one, keep trying to follow the same rule, but learn to be kinder to yourself. And number two, try a new rule that still honors your values, but that you can achieve more easily. I know some of you probably have questions, so let's take a closer look at both options. Option number one basically means that you drop the blame game. You still take responsibility for your choices, but you don't have to get all bent out of shape and let your porn habits determine your entire worth as a human being. Speaking of worth, as a Christian, I believe that when God created me, He gave me inherent value that even a lifetime of mistakes cannot erase. So I stop constantly questioning my value and instead start noticing the ways that God has blessed my life. So option number one, be kinder to yourself. In option number two, I suggested finding a new rule. I know some of you might be leery about this idea. You might think, wait, what? Do you want me to just drop my standards? Some of our internal resistance to rule changing goes back to the thought error of all or nothing thinking that we talked about in episode 3. We could keep insisting on perfectly following the rule, but if we continue to break the rule regularly, it takes a lot of mental and emotional work to keep ourselves going. There are probably many alternative rules to, quote, never look at porn, end quote, that you could come up with. I'll offer a couple of ideas here. Rule idea number 1. Try swapping out the word never with an amount that you think you can actually achieve in the short term. For example, don't look at porn more than 3 times per week, knowing that eventually you intend to not look at it at all. Number 2, drop the amount altogether. Let your rule be, when or after you look at porn, refocus onto something more worthy of your time and attention. Now, after hearing these ideas, some of you may be really excited to try them out. If so, excellent. Go do it. Others of you may still feel skeptical. That's totally fine too. You don't have to love my ideas. You can think of your own, but just realize that if you continue resisting significant change to your personal rules, you are not likely to get significantly different results. Please let me clarify that I'm not asking you to throw away your entire value system. I'm simply asking you to be more strategic in your daily goals and practices. This brings me to my final point. Often our best rules, the ones that are the most productive and help us the most, are the rules that we created for ourselves. I'm not trying to naysay what your mom or dad or pastor, priest, or bishop told you. Nor am I telling you to ignore specific instruction from God in the Bible or any other sacred texts. What I'm saying is that when we are proactive in figuring out what works best for ourselves, by our own experience, our own trial and error, then we are going to find success much faster than exclusively following rules that other people have set for us and that may only represent a bare minimum standard of behavior. Eventually, your rule around porn may sound like, seek for wholesome content on the internet, instead of focusing on an amount of porn that is or isn't okay. And I'm also saying, go ahead. Invite God into your rule setting and your goal setting process. Make it a matter of study and prayer. I'm not saying to replace God's rules with your own. I'm saying work with God to find a solution that works for you. Why? Because the alternative, or what you are doing right now, isn't working. So what have you got to lose? If you change your rules around porn and it still isn't working, then change them again. We can always go back to what we were doing before, but if we don't try something new, we are sure to get the same result. Is that really what we want? Okay, I think I made a point there. One caution on what I just said is that I don't want it to sound as though we are changing our rules willy-nilly all the time just because that's what we feel like in the moment. That's the equivalent of not really having any rules at all. As a stereotypical example, let's say you decide your rule is to not look at porn more than twice per week. And then the urge to look at porn comes. And you think, you know what? I've already looked at porn twice this week, but maybe twice a week is too hard. And Steven said I'm allowed to change my rules, so now I'm going to make it 4 times per week. And then you proceed to look at porn. Changing your personal rules like that is missing the point here. That is simply an excuse to indulge the lower brain with pleasure. So, how do you make sure you're engaging your higher brain when you set rules for yourself? By thinking long term and by planning in advance. At least 24 hours in advance if you're going to relax previous rules. Building in that delay helps us be sure that we aren't just gratifying our desires in the heat of the moment because our sexual desire is really high. It ensures that we have some strategy or solid reasoning behind why we are choosing what we are choosing. Something better than, life is hard, so I should get to look at more porn. Okay? It can also help to set personal rules with an accountability partner. Maybe you make some rules that you and your wife both agree to. Or you work with a religious leader or coach before changing safeguards that you have set for your own behavior. Ultimately, one of the best things about deciding on rules for your own behavior is that you have complete buy-in. You believe in the reasons for why you are doing what you are doing, or you wouldn't have chosen it. And if you are currently following rules that you don't really believe in, then maybe there's something for you to consider there. Something to improve. It's possible that it's not the rule that needs to change, but simply our attitude. Remember, use rules for yourself, not against yourself. All right, my friends, That's all I've got for today. If you have questions still, reach out to me. I have contact info on my website. Bye. Thank you for joining me in the episode today. For those interested in one-on-one help, claim your free consultation with me at GratefulLifeCoaching.com. That's GratefulLifeCoaching.com.